And now for something completely different.
Well, welcome back to the studio, Metal-O-Maniacs. And as you can see, I got another badass joining me right now, and my new friend Ash. How you doing, Ash? How you doing, sir?
Yes, not bad, thank you. How are you? How are you?
Oh man, you're making my day, because I got to tell you, this Erebos, man, holy, it's soundtrack to the life shit, sir.
Thank you, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thanks.
Immensely enjoying it immensely. Well, and those who do not know, I'm sure many of our Metal-O-Maniacs are pretty well versed out there, but for those who do not know, introduce yourself to the masses, sir.
I'm Ash, and I play in a metal band called Venom Prison. We've been going since 2015, I believe. We recently signed to Century Media Records and released our third record, Erebos, and here we are now. This is where we are.
Well, yeah, right. Everywhere we go, there we fucking are, right?
That's it.
Well, man, welcome back to life. It does seem to be a time in the world, you know, obviously there's some pretty major news going on, but as at least as far as getting over the COVID shit, we do finally seem to be seeing some life post-COVID. So welcome to that, if you don't, you know.
Yeah, it's certainly getting better. Like, you know, there's shows going on and stuff, and you know, the festivals. We played Bloodstock last year, which was great. Yeah, and you see tours going on and stuff. I know there's been some problems like with Europe, and they've been kind of moving stuff to 2023, but you know, there's stuff still going on, so it's still, you know, there's progression. It's definitely getting better. We've gone from absolutely no shows to shows again. So
right.
Here's to a bit of optimism.
Yes, yeah. From your lips to the metal god's ears. That's exactly my question. Are you starting to be able to plan things? Are you starting, like for Venom Prison specifically, are you able to start piecing together the way that the coming months are going to look?
Yeah, we have been like working on a lot behind the scenes and stuff, and we've been doing some different stuff again. Like, we're not jumping straight into touring. I think when we left the studio, I think everyone was still feeling quite creative and jittery to start, you know, writing more and more. So like, I don't think that's left us. And we're, you know, before all COVID and everything, you know, we did always have that regimented kind of write, tour, record. And I think where we've kind of done Erebus, where we've had all this time on our side and we've reflected on everything, and we've kind of gone into the studio and, you know, got to the end of that session and got to our masters and gone, fuck yeah, like this is, you know, we've got something we were looking at before we even started writing it. We kind of would sit down together and kind of visualize how we felt the album would go dynamically and what we would be doing with it. And you know, it wasn't like we knew what the songs were going to sound like, but we knew what characteristics and mood and dynamic we wanted in that very moment. And it was fun, like just piecing those things together. And that's what time allowed us to do. And I think we were in the van going back from the recording studio when we finally wrapped everything up and Erebus was done. And we were just driving back in the van, and I don't know what it was. It was just so natural, but like I was sat by Ben and with an idea of like, you know, he's like, are you writing again in your head already? And I'm like, yeah, like thing. And then he's been like texting me shit being like, yeah, I've been writing, listen to this like video clip. So it kind of like, it feels good to kind of know that like we're still in that, you know, creative pocket. And I said to Ben that like, it's really important for us to kind of, you know, utilize this moment and kind of whilst it's still there and still, you know, really bubbling over and we're getting all these good ideas come in, because it could be that case of we do go, you know, relentlessly, you know, full on assault touring type thing. And then that edge kind of goes again, and then it's finding it again. And there's that balance. It's a very unusual thing to kind of talk about in a band, but like it's a balance that I think this time over the last 2 years has kind of made some sense in my head as such.
We've had someone tell us recently that it was disruptive and yet productive, if you will. Like, you know, it kind of puts you are kind of forced to be in that creative process where you're stuck at home to marinate for a minute. But then those ingredients start to form and start to come together, man. And as you start doing the cooking, next thing you know, you got Erebos and then more, it sounds like. So
Yeah, that's it exactly. And it's kind of, it is that time. And you know, don't get me wrong, like some of the tours we cancelled due to the start of like COVID, when it all got, you know, at the very start of it, you know, that was a massive blow. One of the tours that got cancelled was Parkway Drive Hatebreed, and it was a pretty much an arena tour. I think the last date was like Wembley, which is like pretty much the biggest thing you could ever play in, you know, this country, like Wembley Arena. And like, you know, seeing that kind of all, you know, all fall apart and be like, ah, shit, like what were you doing? Like, you know, Australia fell through, Download Australia, Southeast Asia, all this shit fell through. And then I think it was just, you know, I think for a week or two it was a bit sore. But then I think, you know, as soon as that 2 weeks, those initial 2 weeks, when I remember just texting Ben and I was like, right, fucking ready to write now. Like, let's start fucking doing it. And then, yeah, we'd already been writing before that anyway, because we always seem to just naturally just keep writing anyway. But that was like the point where it was like, right, I'm not letting that shit bother me. Like, let's get these pre-productions done. Let's demo the shit out of everything and see what we can come up with. And that's pretty much the creation of Erebos.
And an amazing creation, my friend. I got to tell you, I love the final product. You know, we actually been sitting in here in the studio knowing we were talking today, and a bunch of us have been in here watching the videos and shit all day, man. And just a ferocious, badass approach, man. We love every piece of it around here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Has it been fun making videos? For me, it's always fascinating when a band starts. The furthest thing from your mind has to be that one day we'll be, you know, making videos for some of these fucking songs. But on your day when you're first making that first video, when the realization sets in, like, man, we're making a fucking video for this shit. How crazy is that?
Oh, so I got a cool story.
Give it to me.
That.
Yeah.
Like, you say that, but I think it's just the way we think. And I think everybody's got like these different ways of thinking in Venom Prison, but it all seems to form into one thing and gel so well. And it's like, we do start talking about like videos and artwork and everything at the very start, because we go with like a theme and we talk about how we want the album to feel and the dynamics that goes in and out. And we kind of touch on like, you know, we have a pile of names we call a record, but Erebos was the first name that came to mind. And when we got to the very last minute of kind of saving the masters, it was like, is it still called Erebos? And it was like, it's the one that stuck so much. So that was how that was decided. But then there's a funny story to Pain of Oisies, and I don't know what it was, but when we were writing it, I remember I was over Ben's place and we were using like the home setup, and we had, you know, we demoed the whole song and everything. And we would just like put this never ending, like fucking, it was mental thinking about it now. I'd probably say mental now, yeah. So we would put a YouTube video on of just a ship in a rough sea, just an endless loop. And then we would just sit back on the sofa and listen to the song and just see if it made us feel how it was meant to portray us, you know, and represent to that feeling of, you know, the rough waves and all this. And then Larissa wrote vocals, but didn't know about me and Ben doing this. And then there was a lyric like, I find peace at the roughest seas. And I was like, holy shit, like everybody's like seeing that. And then our friend who does all our videos, Thomas Brooker, he's like very close knit with the band. He knows like what we're all like. We've been friends for years. And he was like, I've got an idea for Pain of Oisies. And I was like, go on then. And he was like, by the water, dancing by the water. I was like, this, yeah, like this couldn't have been made up. Like, it was like surreal. Do you know what I mean? But this was even before we'd even kind of, yeah, like it wasn't like we got to music video time and it was like, oh, what are we going to do? It was just like everyone like bit by bit was just like this. And it was like,
shit, that was preordained, my friend. That decision was made without you and before you.
Yeah, exactly. It was crazy. Like, I think with records, I do kind of see them as like one art piece. I feel like visual and sound go hand in hand so perfectly with each other. And it's like, there's nothing that like, I don't want to say irritates me, because it doesn't, I don't lose sleep over it, but when you see like artwork that's not very thought out to a record, and you're like, it doesn't portray or represent a feeling or a mood, and it's like, it's how Venom Prison kind of captures ours, is where we work really closely with Elaran Cantor. We've been friends with him since our first record, and the way we work together is we'll send him the pre-productions of the records. Larissa will send him the lyric sheets, and he'll sit with the pre-production and the lyrics for about a week or two, and then he'll come back and he might have like a passage or like a lyric or a line or something, or be like, this is what ties up this vision for me and this idea. And every album has that. Every album has a certain passage from the record that is a representation of what that artwork is.
Fuck yes.
And he did it with Erebos again, and he was like, I really found like, you know, this form of desperation and suffering, but in a compassionate way of kind of trying to portray it in a way. But yeah, like I as soon as I seen the first sketch, I was like, I'm so in. Like, this is exactly how I, you know, feel when I listen to it. It's kind of that emotion I was trying to, like, we were trying to portray when we were doing it. So it's something we like constantly think and talk about as we're going through even the writing stages and recording. And we're not really a band who are like afraid of change either. Like, you could put us up to like, I don't know, the last day of tracking guitars and be like, oh, actually I really want to change this bit here, and everyone's like, okay, cool, like,
hey, let's do it.
If there's a reason for it, then there's, and it would naturally happen. Like, we would just get to a bit and go to track it, and I'm like, like maybe Scott, the guy producing it, would kind of be like, I don't see what that bit does, and I'm like, cool, if you don't see what it does, then someone else is not going to see what it does. So
right on, let's do it different.
So yeah, so like, yeah, like, we're not afraid of, it's not like we walk in with like, some people that have what I like to call like demoitis, where they've like formed this like perfect demo and they just cannot let it change. And I'm like, you know, you're breaking like a creative flow here, because you're brick wall in between an idea. Right. Like, you can't do that, like, when you're writing a record. But you know, we're lucky enough to be a band full of people like that, you know, like, so even the people who you know work around us, whether it's Brooker, who does videos with us and stuff, like, everyone's always super input.
Each idea is its own living thing once it's birthed upon out, you know, once it comes out of the brain, it's a living creature. It has to, you know, you can't shut off the oxygen from it. I mean, let's be honest, Erebos itself is 10 living embodiments of what you guys are putting out into the world over the last couple of years, and what you've been through over the last couple of years, what's inside of your soul, I guess, in a lot of ways, man. I don't think it's overstating it to say it that way, even. I mean, and you know, now that it's arrived, you know, badassery, I got to say again, but my point being exactly that, though, you got it is so good because exactly that, you give it the room to breathe, you give it the room to grow, you give it the room to change and become what it's ultimately going to be. And well, yeah. And now let me ask you, now that it's out on the world, how does that feel? I mean,
it feels really good, and just in the factor of like, even just as a band, as people collectively in a band, that I think we made the right decision on a lot of things, and in our eyes, we kind of did what we were setting out to do, where it was like, hey, this is album 3. We kind of have been known to vary from, you know, styles from record to record, whether it's more grind or technical, you know, like brutal death, or, you know, when we got to Erebos, we were like, let's really think about these new layers, additions, and paths we're going down. And we knew it was going to be hard to achieve, because the first thing we said to each other when we started was, hey, we're going to write songs on this record. And saying that word in the Venom Prison camp, going, we're writing songs, everyone's like, what do you mean songs? It's just riffs. It's just riffs, it ain't songs. But no, when you say that to us, we're like, oh shit, he said the word song.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
But then it was like, how do you make that your own? Like, how do you make that so it still has that Venom Prison flair, it still has the core, but it's bringing that new addition and layer and kind of evolution to something. And it's like, I remember like even we were staying at a cool accommodation near the studio, and I remember saying on the last day of recording, I think me and Ben were sat outside and we're just chatting, and I said like, even if the record didn't do well, like I like it, like, you know, I think it's the best thing we have done to date.
Hey, structured madness is still madness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It still brings the fucking guts. It's still got that fucking approach to it, which is fucking extreme, and it's in your face, and it's the lyrical content is gritty, and it's thought provoking, and it's you know, it gets in your soul. Tell me about the formation of the band. How did you cats come together and make this Venom Prison project into what it is?
So we've always known of each other as such. We all played in hardcore and punk bands before Venom Prison. Like,
all over the UK scene.
Yeah, like Larissa was playing in a German hardcore band called Wolf Down. I was playing in a UK hardcore band called Brutality Will Prevail. Ben and Jeff, our bassist and guitarist, were playing in a band called True Valiance. And like we were just always touring bands, and we would always bump into each other and stuff. And I think either members had left their band or the band stopped, but I remember just putting a message out being like, hey, does anyone fancy doing a metal band? I've never done a metal band. I've always wanted to do a metal band, so let's do it. And like Larissa was like, fuck yeah, let's do it. Ben was like, hell yeah. And yeah, like for some of us, it's the first time we've tried something like this, you know, like we come from very DIY hardcore punk backgrounds. So it's like, I was saying to, I can't remember who it was, but some of like these festivals that we've played in the UK, like really big famous like festivals and all that, and like we'd have interviews and they were like, what's it like to, you know, always go to Download and know about Download and then like finally play it? And I was like, I've never been to Download in my life. I literally have never been, like, I didn't come from like none of us came from a scene or a background where I had that type of money to go to a festival as a kid. I was going to like shows down the road, venues like punk shows, and like just, like going to like
my buddy's basement and shit.
Fucking house shows in Cardiff. I remember there was like house shows in Cardiff all the time, and people just be fucking jumping off guitar cabs. Then, cool story, when we did a video for our first record, we were like, I know we're doing metal, but let's do a fucking house show and film it as a music video. And that's what we did, and that was like pretty sweet. Okay. But yeah, like that's awesome. Yeah, that's fucking mad to think when it's like, oh, what's it like to attend and now play? I was like, I've never had that. That's not the background any of us come from. I'm
a metalhead at heart, so very selfishly as a metalhead, I'm glad that you've chosen this course of action, my friend, you know, because it plays right into my wheelhouse as a fan. But I've made no, you know, secrets about it here on the show for as long as for the 6 years we've been doing the show, that I've always dragged a foot through the punk scene. I had the mohawk when I was young. I've always had roots for hardcore, and I think the fact that all of those elements are represented in your band is why I love the band to the degree that I do, man. I you know, all of those layers, you know, I love that you can't really pin Venom Prison down under a fucking, you know, under a thumbnail and say that's exactly what the fuck that is. You know what I mean? I love that it defies a simple definition in that way. I think that gives it fucking flavor, my friend, you know?
Yeah, and that is pretty much Venom Prison in a nutshell, if you know what I mean. It's just it's always been a band that we wanted to be unpredictable, even for ourselves. It's kind of like, even when I speak to Ben and it's like, it's not like we don't say, oh, let's write record 2 or record 3. We say, what's this one going to sound like? Because we know that we want to change that every time. It needs to be unpredictable to keep us fresh. We could be writing the same record, Animus, 20 times for 20 years, and then all of a sudden be like, oh yeah, I feel a bit creative now. And then everyone's like, I can't get used to it because you've been doing that for 20 years.
Right. You're right. Exactly.
Where it's still quite early in this band's life, but it's easy for us to kind of go, okay, that we've done that. Let's try this.
Let's
And
flex a different muscle, you know?
yeah, pretty
Right.
much. And like,
Yeah.
as long as that core sound remains, which we stay very, very, you know,
Loyal to.
yeah, we know. Like, to be fair, I said it to someone not long ago. I think we do it subconsciously. I actually don't think we even think about it anymore. I think it was like Scott was saying to us, that the guy Scott Atkins who recorded our record, and he was saying it's just very obvious sometimes, like the type of background like a guitar player or someone will come from, because it's the style of writing that makes it's not following any formula, because it's never been taught a formula. That's the difference. Where I think that's kind of where it plays a big role in Venom Prison, where it's not, I never had guitar lessons or music lessons or theory lessons or anything. It was kind of pick up a guitar, and if that riff sounded great, then it sounded great, and that was thing. So if I want to put a weird couple of bars of something, then I'm not going to go, oh, I can't do that, my music teacher told me not to. It's like,
yeah, right.
no one's ever told me I can't. So yeah, and that's kind of the way myself and Ben think in Venom Prison. We're just kind of like, why can't I do that?
The DNA of you cats has really, you know, made itself very apparent on this record, if you don't mind my saying. And I'm a fan, man. And I'm hugely appreciative of your time and coming to hang out with us at Metal-O-Mania. It means the world to me, sir.
Anytime. Thanks for having me as well. Cheers, man. Thank you. You're with Ash Gray from Venom Prison. You're listening to Metal-O-Mania with the Crypt and Scully.
Ever wondered who watches you through your laptop camera? Or why there's sometimes product placement in your dreams?
Since the dawn of time, the world has been ruled by a cabal of ancient elites.